So, we learned about the monastery on the island of Iona last week that was founded 1,500 years ago. To start our discussion time tonight, I want to read an opening prayer that was written by the modern day Iona Monastery community. So, let us hear this opening prayer to begin our time. Come to us this night, O God. Come to us with light. Speak to us this night, O God. Speak to us your truth. Dwell with us this night, O God. Dwell with us in love. Thanks be to you, O Christ, for the many gifts you have bestowed on us. Each day and night, each sea and land, each weather fair, each calm, each wild. Each night may we remember your mercy given so gently and generously. Each thing we have received, from you it came. Each thing for which we hope, from your love it will come. Amen. Amen. So let's continue a little bit our good discussion from last week. Did anyone take anything with them that inspired or guided them from last week? Anything that kind of latched onto from the handout or from the discussion? Anything you took with you? Is there something you especially liked from last week? I talked a lot, so I wanted to give some room. You remember what the kind of the homework challenge was from last week?
You're just too shy to say.
Okay. It was to like make every moment holy, to find and feel the presence of God in every moment, in every space, even the most common of tasks. That was one of the Celtic Christians' approach to daily life and work. And as you saw the handout from last week, one of the other main beliefs that the Celtic Christians had was about thin places. Places on earth, either outside or inside, where it felt like the presence of God was a little closer. Like the distance between heaven and earth was thin in those holy, sacred spaces. So that's why we talked last week how it's good to go somewhere, whether it's a church or a prayer room or a retreat center, that feels like a thin place to you, like the veil between heaven and earth is just a little more thin there. So you can feel God's presence and then go back to your normal spaces, and hopefully God's presence will feel a little closer to you there as well. This week we'll be talking about when we are called to go and to kind of go outside, to leave that holy space, to leave maybe a safe space, to head out into the unknown. So to help us get started thinking about that, why would someone ever do that? Why would someone just up and leave the place where they lived? Have any of you ever picked up and moved a long way before? If so, why? What was the reason?
Moved from upstate New York to here, not knowing anybody. I did have a job arranged, but to be closer to my grandson in Atlanta.
That's a great reason.
And a lot of you know my story. A year later, I had found a church, a wife, and a new job.
That's the Holy Trinity right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the bingo. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, moving to kind of have a new start, to be closer to loved ones, and then and I think following that kind of call, and then getting there and realizing, yes, God was with me, God met me here, God's providing for me. Yes. Other big moves?
I also moved here from upstate New York,
Well,
close to my grandmother.
we're all glad that both of you could escape the north and come down to Promised Land. How was that?
When I was in the 10th grade at North Public High School, year of the consolidated school. And it was feared that there would be rivalry, all of the feeder schools. So my family shipped me off to Mexico. So.
And that's when you went to like Los Alamos, right, in 10th grade?
Right.
So that'd be a tough age to make a big move. But
Fortunately, in Los Alamos, there were no neighbors. Everybody everybody was a transplant.
that makes sense. That makes sense. A little easier, hopefully, to make friends if everybody was kind of new.
Stu, I think sometimes move is not about distance. It's a movement in your life.
Yeah.
A change in your life, a calling that's come. So you may be in the same place, but there's been movement in your life.
Yeah. That's well said. Something can shift. And maybe even if someone kind of moves out of one house in the town, but into another place in the same town, that might be a huge shift in their life or a shift in relationships. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Like the hurricane caused big moves? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yes, sometimes we move for good reasons to go toward good things, and sometimes we move because of hard, bad reasons that make us leave. That reminds me, like in Hurricane Katrina, so many people had to move out of New Orleans, and in our area, so many people's homes got destroyed, and they've had to move and shift even in the same area or different areas. Yeah. When I was 9, we moved from Louisiana to Nashville because my mom was starting, she went back to school to get her master's degree. So that was a big shift for her school, but it shifted us as well. And then, for jobs, sometimes you get a job in another state, another town, and you feel and you hope like, this is my good next step, this is what I'm called to do. It brings that kind of potential, that excitement, that hope. Well, that's what we'll be talking about tonight, is when you feel like the pull of, I gotta take this next step, I gotta take this big step, that there's some new thing that I'm being called to go towards. So first, let's talk about where we would come from, the safe place or the holy place. Last week, we talked about Iona, the monastery that was founded on a little island on the west coast of Scotland in 563 AD, so almost 1,500 years ago. Let's see, so there's the little island. It's about 3 miles long. You can see there it's on the west coast of Scotland. Let's zoom out. There we go. It's that little dot, right, kind of in the top left corner. Right there. So after it was founded as a monastery, a remote, kind of hard to get to, out of the way, holy place, which was the intention. Last week we talked about Columba intentionally started this holy place that was kind of removed from the hustle and bustle of normal life. And that was one of the Celtic Christians' priorities, is to kind of separate ourselves from the busyness of life. So they started Iona, a place where people could start coming and learning and worshiping and being nourished, and it grew and continued to grow. So let's fast forward to 100 years later, in the 600s, on the other side of Great Britain was the kingdom of Northumbria. So you can see in the top right corner where the Northumbrians lived. Everything back then was like little kingdoms. There was no big countries yet. It was just kind of random tribes of Celts or Picts or Britons or Saxons. So on the east coast, the northeast coast of England, southeast Scotland, was this area called Northumbria. And today it's right on the border of England and Scotland. The reason we're talking about Northumbria is because the local king at the time was like the first Christian king in the area. Unfortunately, he was killed by a local rival, so his son, the prince, Oswald, had to flee. We talked last week that the Christian message hadn't quite reached that far north just yet, so the fact that there was a Christian king that far north was unique and new. Sadly, he was killed by a rival, so his son, Prince Oswald, had to flee. He fled north and west in the year 616 AD, and he made it to Iona. He found refuge there, sanctuary there. Fortunately, like we talked last week, one of the priorities of the Celtic Christians was hospitality and welcoming anyone who would travel to their land to be welcomed, to have a safe place to stay, to learn, to grow. That was a big priority for them. So maybe Oswald heard about that, and he was like, that's where I need to go. His life was in danger, and he found refuge at Iona. He was young when he got there, so he was raised by the monks on Iona. He was educated by them. Especially, there was one monk in particular named Aidan. He helped Oswald decide to follow Jesus in his life and get baptized. And later on, Aidan would become Oswald's spiritual advisor, but we'll get there in a minute. We'll talk more about that in a minute. In the year 634 AD, and don't worry, I'll give you a handout with these dates in a minute, that throne-stealing rival was killed in battle by neighboring kings. So you can see like there's all these kind of tribes around, they're all fighting each other. So that rival who had killed Oswald's father, he gets killed in battle. So there's an opportunity. Oswald, since he had grown up on Iona, he had made good connections with the local Scottish kings and the clans there on the west coast. So he got some support, and he marched all the way back to Northumbria. And he reclaimed his kingdom. Legend has it that the night before the big battle, when Oswald would retake Northumbria, he spent the night in prayer, kind of like Jacob the night before he met his brother in prayer. Jesus the night before he was arrested in prayer. Oswald did the same thing. He spent the night in prayer before the big battle. And legend has it that while he was praying, he had a vision of Columba. So we remember Columba from last week. He founded the monastery of Iona. He had been dead about 35 years at this point. But according to legend, in this vision, Columba tells Oswald that he will have victory over his enemies. Sure enough, the next day the battle happens. Oswald is victorious. He names the battleground Heaven Field. And all of his nobles and captains give their lives to God as well. They are convinced in the mighty power of God. And so that next level of nobility, they become Christians too. But, like we said, the Christian message hadn't really reached that far. So Oswald retakes his kingdom of Northumbria. He is a Jesus follower. Some of his nobles are Jesus followers. But none of the people who live there, the natives, none of them have heard the gospel yet. So Oswald writes back to Iona and says, I need some help. I need help bringing the message of Jesus to my kingdom of Northumbria. So he asked for teachers and he asked for missionaries. At this point, Iona had been operating for about 80 years. So there was a good number of people. Lots of monks had been trained there. So the leadership of Iona sends a monk to Northumbria, a guy named Corman. Apparently he was a jerk. and he alienated all of the Northumbrian people there because of his harshness. Nobody liked him. So he turned around and went back to Iona in failure. And he said that the Northumbrians were, quote, too stubborn to be converted. What are you going to do? Well, enter Aidan. There we go. There's Aidan, later Saint Aidan. Aidan was Irish and moved to Iona at a young age to be raised and trained there by the monks and to become a monk. When he heard Cormon's critical report, Aidan, criticized Cormon's methods and said, well, obviously, it failed because of your attitude, man. The leadership of Iona said, well, we'll send you instead, Aidan. So he was appointed to travel east and set up a base for Christian work there in the kingdom of Northumbria. It would have been a very hazardous journey, upwards of 275 miles or so. So there we go, there's Iona on the west coast, and he would have traveled all the way to the east coast. Aidan apparently preferred to walk all the time instead of riding a horse. It helped him be closer to the land and closer to the people. So that long journey of about 275 miles, he would have taken on foot. But it was through all those wild tribes of peoples, so not an easy journey to make. Certainly the year 634 AD, not a lot of Marriotts to stop at on the way, or amenities to enjoy. So what do you think motivated Aidan so much that he would leave this safe home, this holy place that had raised him, and head out into wild territory to an unchristian land? Why would anybody do something crazy like that?
To spread the good news.
To spread the good news. He must have really been on fire for spreading the good news of God's love. Coincidentally, the name Aidan means fiery, or set on fire. Hope. What's that? Hope. He must have been hopeful, yeah, because no one over there really knew about Jesus except for newly crowned King Oswald, and the only report he had heard back was that the locals were too stubborn to be converted anyway.
What would have been the religion, if there was such, in that
Yeah.
area at that time?
It would have been kind of the generic pagan religion, like Druids, kind of a Wiccan kind of style, just kind of an earth worship. Think of like Stonehenge, kind of Berlin, like that kind of pre-Christian England, Britain. So, not very dedicated religious practices, but like they didn't have church structures that they went to every week and sang hymns and gave offerings, but it was kind of a general mindset, which meant that they would have been, open to a good, helpful system of religion and faith and spirituality. They would have been kind of that vaguely earth spiritual kind of people.
Spiritual, not religious.
Bingo, yes. The people of Northumbria, Angles and Saxons, would have been spiritual but not religious. Yeah, absolutely. But Aidan had hope, with no facts to back it up. But he must have had faith to be sure of what we hope for, even in the evidence of things unseen and in the evidence of other jerk monks who did a bad job carrying the gospel before him. So he decides to take off this place he had never been to. Like we said last week, islands are special for Celtic Christians. They hold a special significance because they are by default kind of remote and set apart from the hustle and bustle. They allowed the ancient Celtic monks to distance themselves from worldly affairs. So when Aidan got over to the east coast, he looks for an island. He finds the island of Lindisfarne. You can see it on the map right there. It's a good choice because it's really pretty. So he finds this island off the east coast, Lindisfarne. That's where he sets up shop for his new mission to bring the message of Jesus to the people of Northumbria. The feel, like the vibe, the priorities, would have been very similar to Iona. So those like Celtic Christian priorities and focuses on the back of last week's handout that Aidan would have learned at Iona, he would have carried those with him to Lindisfarne. So think of this as kind of like a church plant. Like Iona, the mother church, knows that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So they beseeched the Lord of the harvest to send out workers, and Aidan said, "Here I am, send me." So he's gone, he's found this lovely little island, and he has set up shop. Similar to Iona, the island of Lindisfarne is also about 3 miles long and 2 miles wide, just a little different shape. Also like Iona, about 200 years later, it was also attacked and destroyed by Viking raiders. Those pesky Vikings always up to trouble. And actually, I showed this picture last week when we talked about the Viking raids at Iona, but this painting is specifically a depiction of the Viking raid on Lindisfarne, because the Vikings got there first. Since Lindisfarne is on the east coast, and the Vikings were coming over from Denmark and Norway and Sweden, they hit Lindisfarne first. And it was bad and it was bloody. The monks, again, tried to save the holy manuscripts, like the copies of the Bible or the holy relics. But fortunately, later, it was reopened. The monastery of Lindisfarne was opened again, kind of as the age of Vikings subsided, the attacks dropped off. Lindisfarne opened again as a hub of faith and learning and Christianity. Since Lindisfarne is closer to the mainland, closer to civilization than Iona is like a little island off the coast of a middle-sized island off the coast of like a tiny little village. Lindisfarne is an island that's right off the coast of civilization, so it's a little more accessible. And it became kind of like the county seat almost. It was the seat of the local Christian diocese. We might call it like the local association of churches that were in the area. And it always had a bishop who lived there and was kind of based out of Lindisfarne to guide the rest of the kind of the county, the region that he was in charge of. So the local bishop lived on the island of Lindisfarne and was based out there for centuries until the Viking attacks. They had to move the bishop's seat elsewhere. So the island of Lindisfarne became such a holy place that even today, people don't even use the name Lindisfarne. They just call it the Holy Island. And if you look it up on Google Maps or if you Google it, its full name is the Holy Island of Lindisfarne. And apparently the locals today call it the Holy Island, and they only call it Lindisfarne if they're going back in time, like, oh, 1,500 years ago, Aidan came to Lindisfarne. Now today, it's the Holy Island. It used to just be a blob of land, but now everyone calls it holy. You can see the monastery there. So that's a big difference, a big shift, all from Aidan's work. So let's talk about Aidan for a minute. Aidan was a different kind of monk. He was definitely different than the first monk who went over there, Corban the jerky, as we call him. Aidan had his own unique style of sharing the message of God. Some preachers might stand up on a street corner and shout, judgments at people walking by. Some missionaries might go to a new land and force the local population to worship the exact way that the missionary prefers. Some preachers and missionaries, like Corban, can be pushy and harsh, but not Aidan. Aidan's approach to spreading the gospel was simply to connect with anybody, connect with all people from any walk of life. He would talk to them on their own level, whatever level that may be. He would take an interest in their lives, in their families, in their communities. Aidan slowly brought Christianity to the Northumbrian countryside, one person at a time, one conversation at a time. And he did it at first without even being able to speak the language. Remember, he was Irish and grew up on Iona, which was started by Irish monks. So he only spoke Irish. And on the East Coast, it's far away in Anglo-Saxon territory where they all spoke Old English. So here's what happened. You remember then Prince, now King Oswald? Well, he had spent years growing up on Iona, so he was fluent in Irish, and he would translate Aidan's messages. So you can see there's Aidan there standing up in the middle, and King Oswald is translating from Irish to Old English. Aidan was so devoted to strengthening his new community that he became a champion, not just of helping people learn about Jesus, but just helping people learn to better themselves. He was a champion of education. He founded a school next to his new monastery so that he could train not just monks, but anybody, kids, church members. His emphasis on education fostered this beautiful culture of intellectual growth and of learning that still exists around Lindisfarne in Northumbria today. Aidan died in the year 651. We don't know exactly when he was born, maybe around the year 600. But he died in 651 after 17 years of living, working, and serving the people of Northumbria, focused there in Lindisfarne. So he spent the last 17 years of his life living and serving there. He's buried right under his monastery on the island of Lindisfarne. A few hundred years later, the first historian of the English church, a guy named Bede, very venerable man, he wrote this about Aidan in his History of the English Church. Aidan neither sought nor loved anything of this world, but delighted in distributing immediately to the poor whatever was given him by kings or rich men. He traversed both town and country on foot, never on horseback. Whenever he came across any who were not Christian, whether rich or poor, he invited them to embrace the mystery of the faith. If they were already believers, he invited them to strengthen their faith and stirred them by words and actions to help the poor and to do good works. So, a great guy. Aidan made it a point to connect, to love, and to encourage anybody at any level of society, from the nobility at the highest economic level to the very bottom, the poor, the people on the margins of society that were overlooked, like orphans and slaves. Whenever Aidan was given money, he would go to the slave market in Northumbria and purchase freedom for as many slaves as he had money for, especially the children. Then he would invite the children to his school so they could learn how to read and how to write and how to pray. That helped the community grow at Lindisfarne. And when there's more people, more new projects are needed, maybe new buildings, maybe new gardens. Whenever a new project would arise, Aidan would, as soon as possible, hand over leadership and authority for those new projects to the local people, to encourage them, to empower them, to send them out into the harvest fields, whether literal or spiritual. I love learning about Saint Aidan. In everything I've read, it said that Aidan was gentle, he was personal, he was humble, he was compassionate, he listened well, he prayed constantly, much like, is it 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17, be joyful always, pray continuously. He cared for people's lives and bodies and minds and spirits. He literally set people free from slavery. He had a deep, quiet, humble way of practicing evangelism and missions. Apparently, he did everything without fanfare or flashiness, not to get attention. But that's how he lived. That's how he practiced his faith and his mission. So definitely the opposite of the first guy who went to Northumbria, the first monk, Cormon, who had failed to connect with people there because of his harshness and his strict discipline. But the people there loved Aidan. Even though he wasn't from around there. He wasn't a native. He couldn't even speak their language when he first arrived. So why do you think they loved him so much, this out-of-towner coming in? How could one monk alienate people so much, but Aidan's way connect with them so deeply that they would give their lives to God? Why do you think that is? What is it about Aidan or his approach that inspired people so much? Why would that work when Cormon's approach did not?
Because it was like Christ. Prayerful, gentle, self-sacrificing, loving, kind, all loving them in tangible ways.
That's lovely. Aidan's love was like Christ's love. Yeah, Jesus never told anybody, you have to follow me. You must do this. He would say, if you want to follow me, you got to do these things. You got to love your neighbor. You got to love the Lord. And some people would turn away.
It sounds as though he became one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they began to trust him. And of course, it sounds like his love was a combination. But he just blended right in with them and related to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how you get to know you. So maybe that's part of the acceptance they had of him, along with that message that he carried.
Yeah, yeah. He wanted to connect. He wanted to genuinely get to know them. And that's how he earned a hearing. Like he earned the privilege, the honor of telling them about Jesus. He didn't just stroll into town and say, listen up, you dumb pagans. Here's the way it's going to be. I assume that was Cormon's strategy. But Aidan first wanted to get to know them. He cared about their lives. Wanted to hear about their families. He earned a hearing. Yeah. Well, what would that look like today if we translated Cormon and Aidan's approach today? What would it look like, and what can we learn from them about helping share faith today? What would the modern day translation look like?
Just the one incident of Helene, it would be welcoming people in, no matter if they have lots or if they have nothing. And we took care of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's, that was just one incident. But of course, that could be every day, just like Nick and the kids this summer feeding the kids,
Yeah. 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 After the hurricane, we didn't check anybody's ID at the
No.
door. We didn't decide, I don't know.
We just let them in.
Is that guy welcome here?
Yeah.
Anyone in need
Yeah.
could come Yeah, and eventually we started realizing, like in the first kind of week, okay, we need one person at the counter serving coffee. We need one person overseeing like the food pantry supplies. We need 3 people giving out food for lunch, and we want 1 or 2 people to just sit at tables and talk and ask questions and get to know the people who were there. And that was at least one of our volunteer spots in those first few weeks, is just to sit down and say, how's it going? What's it been like for you?
Yeah.
And that's an important role.
I think another maybe part of his approach, he was not judgmental. Human beings tend to take on that role, which is not our role. So he wasn't judgmental, like the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
I meet them where they are. And that people can tell if you're genuine or not. They can kick you out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that was a big part of that.
Yeah, if you're judgmental to someone, they will not be interested in what you have to say. And that's why Corban said they're too stubborn to be converted.
I still have this in my mind, and I hear some of the things that people say that I've heard since I was, well, I am, but I am now. But trust in the Lord with all your heart. One thing my dad would say. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will, I forgot the word. Yes.
Make your path straight,
Straight. Yeah, just one way. There's another, but that is close.
and he shall direct your paths. And that's demonstrated in Aidan's life as well, because Aidan let his path be guided by the Lord into this unknown territory, and not knowing what might happen. And indeed, that trust that Aidan put in God, it paid off, because the people there, their lives were transformed. Because Aidan met them face to face. He was not on his high horse, literally, because he didn't like riding horses. He would be on the ground, face to face, heart to heart, a gentle and holy man who shined the light of Christ through his actions and the way that he lived. And you'll see there's this statue of him in the churchyard on Lindisfarne. Let's look at it from the front. So in that statue, he's carrying a burning torch of the gospel. It was on fire, the light of Christ, the burning torch of the gospel in one hand, and a shepherd's staff of a pastor in the other. His statue there faces south towards the coast, towards the mainland, towards his people. He's looking at his people. He's looking at Northumbria, holding for them the light of Christ and his love as a shepherd for them. So, lastly, let's look at, there are 4 key approaches that Aidan had for his mission work. I want you to listen to each one, and listen for which one stands out to you the most, either one that you really like or one that you want to work on. So the first, pray the Psalms daily by heart. That was really big for Aidan. He knew the whole book of Psalms from memory. And every day he would pray it and recite it. And Psalms is the biggest book in the Bible. And he knew the whole thing by heart. And he would teach the younger monks to learn it and to pray the Psalms from their heart as well. And that's like, keeps me singing as I go, right? If you've got the holy songs, the scriptures, the hymns, chanting over and over in your head, that will really help you and guide you. Number 2, study and live the Gospels. Study them, yes, and live them. Aidan loved the 4 Gospels. He loved reading the stories of Jesus' life and ministry and teaching, and he would infuse that into his students at Lindisfarne. After he died, because of that love for the Gospels, that he had encouraged. The monks at Lindisfarne produced some of the most beautiful illuminated gospels ever. Do I have a picture of that? No, I don't. You can Google Lindisfarne Gospels, and you'll see like beautiful medieval artwork. They're real treasures that the monks there made after he died. Number 3, go through life with soul friends. Aidan would pair younger monks with older monks as mentors who could become soul friends to each other and bless each other in helping the younger monks grow, in assisting the older monks in work, and he called them soul friends. And in Celtic, it's anam cara. And sometimes you can find kind of books about developing like strong Christian soul friends, or anam cara. That's what that means. So can't go out alone. Number 4, walk humbly on your own 2 feet to be face to face, heart to heart with people. One of the most beautiful stories about Aidan was when the king gave Aidan a beautiful white stallion so that he could finally go farther and get to places faster to do his work and to carry his message more easily around Northumbria. It would be like today, a government official giving a preacher like a private jet. Like it's the best of the best. Now you can go wherever you want to, as fast as you can get there. When Aidan got the mighty white stallion, he immediately gave it to the first beggar he ran into. Later, the king was outraged when he heard about it, and Aidan told him that he was called to care more for the children of God than for the child of a mare, of a horse. So, of those 4 key approaches that Aidan had to missions, is there one that stood out to you more, that you liked or you want to work on?
Question related to the Gospels.
Mhm.
What language might that have been in? I don't think they had the King James Version
That's
at
right.
that time.
That's right. Yes, the King James would be 1,000 years later. So it would have been, I'm pretty sure, in Latin at that time. That would have probably been, I'm trying to think when St. Jerome and the Vulgate. I don't remember when that was made. Probably Latin or Greek, like the original Greek of the Gospels. It probably would not have been in the spoken language of Old English at the time. It would have probably been Latin or Greek. Yeah. So he would have had to, he would have been taught that growing up, like as a monk, how to read and write Latin.
I like number 4, it speaks to me as action.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are really, really good, but that's where sort of the rubber meets the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know I can't do number 1.
Well, it doesn't say you have to memorize the whole book.
Yeah.
It just says pray the Psalms daily by heart.
Well, I know some of them by heart, but.
And you can read them. I mean, you can read them with me. That's okay.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And it gives one a good goal to work for. You know, like pick a good kind of short-ish psalm and just read it every day for a week. I bet you probably remember most of it.
Yeah.
Like Psalm number 1, Psalm 100, Psalm 23. Not Psalm 119, that's like 5 pages long.
Yeah.
Yeah, pick a psalm for a week and just read it for a week.
Yeah.
Do a deep dive.
I know 121.
You know Psalm 121? Which one's that?
I lift up my eyes unto the hills from whence cometh my help.
Oh,
Help
good.
cometh from the Lord.
That's right, maker of heaven and earth. Oh, good, that's a great one.
Yes,
That's a great one.
Yeah.
I never can remember which numbers go for which things because it's the psalm.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we'll take these key approaches and just know that Aidan lived a simple life, and yet he transformed thousands of lives. Through his ministry, the gospel of God's love spread geographically. Like remember, the gospel hadn't reached that far yet, so it spread north into more of Scotland It spread farther south into England, and by the time Aidan died, multiple churches and monasteries had been planted all across Great Britain, changing the lives of thousands of people. So Aidan's life made me think of the Old Testament Bible verse, Isaiah 52:7. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who bring salvation, who say to Zion, the holy mountain, your God reigns. I feel like Aidan embodied that. How beautiful on those Scottish mountains are the feet of those who bring good news and peace, good tidings, salvation, and say your God reigns. So, let us conclude our time tonight with the prayer of St. Aidan. Before I read the prayer, remember that Lindisfarne was an island, but I didn't mention this. It's only an island half of the day, because when the tide rises, it's an island, but then in low tide, there's kind of a walkway, a causeway, that pilgrims can walk across, and I think there's a basic road for vehicles and deliveries to drive across that connects Lindisfarne with the mainland. So here, as we conclude, is the prayer of St. Aidan. Leave me alone with God as much as may be. As the tide draws the waters close in upon the shore, make me an island, set apart, alone with you, God, holy to you. Then with the turning of the tide, prepare me to carry your presence to the busy world beyond, the world that rushes in on me, till the waters come again and fold me back to you. Amen.